So today we will build a generative patch from scratch with Hallucigenia, which is available for free, and all the other modules I will use today are also available for free, and I'm 99.9% sure that everything will be available in the next version of VCV as well. All I have here is the mind-meld mixer and a send reverb, and basically Hallucigenia will generate random signals more or less, and it has a few interesting features. So let's start with a simple FM operator voice. I would like to use its internal envelope, so I will activate the envelope for the level just by clicking this button here. And we will need to clock Hallucigenia, so let's use an LFO. I will use the LFO2 from VCV. Let's put this here. If I take the wave all the way to the right, it will output a pulse wave, which is great to use as a clock. So this I will connect to the clock input, and already you can see that it's going, it's running. Right, and now we have a few outputs. We have the gate output that we can use already to gate the FM operator, and also the note output as well, but I would like to quantize this output first. So I will use the quantizer from JW. Let's go today with F minor. Right, so I will send the note output to the quantizer, and from there to the oscillator. And let's already send this to the mixer. Okay, so now we can randomize this sequence by clicking the randomization button here. Let's wait for it, right? Let's change the envelope a bit here, maybe a bit less sustain, a bit more decay. Right, now there are a few things I want to do. First of all, we can see the steps that are on. Here we have the view mode, so if I change it once, we can see the gates that are on, right? And if I change it another time, we can see also the voltage range more or less. So the brighter will be higher notes, darker will be lower notes. But I want to have a change in pitch only together with the gate. If you listen now, you can hear that we have here we have a few notes that are playing even though the gates are off. All right, so here we have auto sample and hold, which will sample the pitch together with the gates, right? So this will cancel those tail notes. Okay, now I also want to make this clock a bit more generative. So let's do this. I will use a VCA before the quantizer, right? And from the VCA back to the quantizer. And now I will close the VCA a bit, let's say to about 20%, to attenuate this voltage. And now I can take the range up, it's called note range. So the range of the voltage will be larger, but because we use a VCA to attenuate the signal, the pitch information will still be somewhat in logical range. So let's take this to about 6, let's say. Right, and now we can use the voltage coming out of here, because it has a larger range, to modulate the clock through the FM input. FM stands for frequency modulation. Frequency is also rate, so this will be also the clock rate. Right, so let's do something like this. Maybe make this a bit slower and open the attenuator a bit more. Right, so now lower notes will have slower clocks, and higher notes will make the clock quicker. Right, so we have something a bit more generative. Let's add a nice amount of reverb to this. All right, and let's start randomizing things. So there are two functions we can use. Again, we can use the randomization, but we can also use the mutate. right? One will randomize everything and the other will change things in the sequence, but not really creating anything new. And we can use the end of cycle. Here it's called end of P, I guess it's pulses, I guess. But I will call it end of cycle. We can use it to trigger them. But first I will use chances from count modular to add probability to those triggers. So with chances I can add probability if from where this trigger will come out of, output A or output B, right? So I will send it to the input of chances, and I will set chances to latch, which means that as long as output A, for example, is being chosen, as long as the signal comes out of output A, it will just keep a gate high. So if it happens that output A is being chosen twice or 3 times in a row, it will still only output once the gate. So this will go to the randomize and this will go to the mutate, right? We can also change the mutation rate and gate density. If I go back to the gates, if I take the gates density all the way to the right, and let's say we randomize it, right? All of the gates will be on. All the way to the left, there will be no gates on. So let's make it somewhere like this, and the mutation, just how much it will mutate everything. Let's take this a bit down. And now let's add some modulation for the feedback, for the timbre of the FM operator. I will use an LLFO. Right, let's send it to the feedback modulation and open the attenuator a bit. Something like this. And let's use the same note output to modulate the rate of this LFO. In this case, it's called volt per octave, which is basically pitch, which is frequency, which is rate. Right, let's make this slower, but something like this. Very nice. Okay, now let's do this. I will use a comparator. This one is again from count modular. A comparator will compare two signals and will output a gate whenever one is above or below the other. And by the way, if you want to know more about comparators and other building blocks of modular synthesis, there's a link in the description to 2 courses I created all about the basics and about working in the modular environment. So again, if you're interested, links in the description. So in this case, I will use the comparator to create another voice that will play only the higher notes of the sequence. So one signal will be the pitch information after the quantizer. Right, this will go to the input of the comparator. And the second signal will be constant signal, the threshold of, let's say, about 1 volt. So let's say 1.02. Right, we can see this also on the scope. The blue trace will be the pitch information, and the pink trace will be the gates. And you will see that whenever the pitch goes above 1 volt, you can see this here, there will come a gate, or a gate will open, as you can see, out of the over, it's called here on the comparator. Right, sometimes the gate will be shorter, sometimes longer, as long as depends how long the pitch information stays above 1 volt. Right? Very cool. So now as our voice, we will use energy from the geodesics. This will be our second voice. Energy has a built-in VCA, it's called here multiply. So let's use an envelope, an ADSR envelope, right, to open this VCA. Very nice. And now the gate for the envelope will come from the over output of the comparator. We can already listen to this as well. now we are waiting for higher notes, just like this, higher notes higher than 1 volt. Okay, let's set also the notes. So we will use the same notes that are coming from the quantizer, but I will want to take it an octave down. So there is oct from VCV that we can use to transpose by octaves, right? So I will take it an octave down, and this will go to the pitch of energy. And let's do this. Let's send energy first to a delay. So I will use chronoblob 2. I will change it to a mono delay, one of the blue modes. This is a mono delay. Right, let's send it already through the delay here. More feedback. Change the delay times. I will change the time the time modulation mode so it's not glitching. Maybe make something like this. Let's also take it maybe a bit down in volume. Right, and add lots of reverb. Yes. Very cool. Okay, let's use another LFO from Bog Audio. Right now it has also a random signal. It can generate also a random signal with slew. I will show you this here on the scope. So now it's a sine wave, but here the last shape here is sample and hold or random. Right? And in the right click menu, we have also smoothing, which will add slew to it. So you can have smooth random signals here. Right, maybe a bit slower. We will use this to modulate the timbre of energy through the momentum input, which is basically FM, and also modulate the panning of this voice on the mixer. Again, this will happen randomly. Very nice. Okay, now an interesting feature of Hallucigenia is the step output, which will output a rising voltage according to the active step. Again, I will show you this on the scope. So step 1 will be 0 volts, the last step will be 10 volts. Right? And this we can also use as pitch information. So let's use another voice. I will use Basal from Volt. Right, let's put it here, let's say, and a VCA and another envelope. Right, Basal will go to the VCA, the envelope will control the VCA, and we can already send this to the mixer. Just like this. Now I would like to sample this step voltage. So I will use sample and hold. In this case, it will be the super sample and hold from Count Modular. Here we have also probability, which is always nice in generative patches. Right, in this case, it will not sample each and every time. Now the trigger we will use will come from our clock, the LFO. Right? And the signal we will sample again will come from the step output and the signal this is. And already here we can attenuate it. Again, we don't want 0 to 10 volts. So let's go to about, let's say 13, 14, something like this. And let's take also the probability down to about, let's say 35%, something like this, 35. Okay, and now I will add another quantizer because I would would like to stay in the same scale. And this is a question I see a lot. How can I get a gate only with a change in notes? So the easiest will be to use a slope detector that will output a gate whenever there is movement, in our case, a change in notes. So again, count modular to the rescue. We have a slope detector. I will send the output of the sample and hold to the quantizer. From the quantizer to the slope detector, again, it will detect changes in the signal. This will go also to the oscillator. And now if we use the moving output, we will get a gate every time there is movement. In this case, again, if the pitch goes up or down. So this will go to the envelope. Let's change this a bit. More release maybe. And maybe take this also 2 octaves down for a nice bass. Oh yes. By the way, I also recorded a video going deeper into the comparator and slope detector techniques. If you are interested, links in the description. Okay, let's add another sequence, something a bit more rhythmic to add some stability to everything. We will use another Hallucigenia, right? This one here. Let's use another LFO as our clock. I will use another LFO. This will go to the clock input. Let's change this to a pulse wave or a square wave. Maybe a bit quicker, something like this. Right, we can also even use the attenuated signal we have here, right, to modulate the rate of this clock. So let's do something like this. So now there is also movement for this sequence. Now as our voice, we will use Plaits in FM mode. Right now the timbre in this case will be the FM amount. So for now we will take it all the way down. We will use another quantizer. I will just duplicate what we have here, right? So this will be the notes, goes to the volt per octave of Plaits, and I will use in this case the trigger output to trigger Plaits. Right, and let's randomize the sequence. Let's do something like this, and this will go to the mixer. Right, again, maybe I will solo this for a second, I'm sorry, but again I would like to use the sample and hold. Maybe have a sequence with a few more triggers here. Maybe 7 steps just. Right, let's add now lots and lots and lots and lots of reverb. I'll just take the level down a bit and add nice amount here. Yes. Right. And now let's do this. I will save the sequence. Here we have save and load. There is a CV input, but also a button, so I will save it. And now if we mutate things, we can always go back. Right, we can always go back to the original sequence. So what we will do, we will use a clock divider, right? And we will use the LFO, which is our clock basically. And I will use divided by 64 to trigger the mutate, and divided by 16 to trigger the load. So now there is some repetition and some randomness. And now let's do this. First of all, I will bring back all of the other voices. And now we will use the vector mixer from Nischi to add variation and movement to the volume and panning as well. Right, so if I send Plaits to A and B, and I use the stereo output from the vector mixer, I have control over the level with the y-axis and over the panning, left and right. And I can record this movement if I activate auto record. Right, let's do something like this. And let's stay down a bit, just so it's not, this voice is not coming in all the time. And let's have another round of something like this. Right, and stay down a bit again. And now it's recording this movement, right? And if I deactivate the auto record, activate loop and run, we have this movement, and I can use the y-axis output together with the level. It will also open the FM amount. So the brighter the sound, the more level the sound has, the brighter the sound as well. Let's listen to this for a bit. Very nice. Okay, that was it for today. Of course, there is a lot you can add to this patch. If you do, feel free to share your results in the comments. I will let this patch run for a bit. I hope you enjoyed this video. Cheers.